Hi everyone, Joe here. Thank you so much, first of all, for the response to the previous video. I really appreciate it. The people that responded, commented, paid the $1 reservation. There's just so much. You have no idea how much motivation it gives. It's there are lots of speed bumps and difficult things in this project, so I really appreciate everybody's sort of support and feedback. Uh, this update is about the camera. And this is something that comes up a lot, both from people saying, you're going to struggle to build a phone with a good camera, and also people saying, by the way, the camera is like the most important thing about the phone. So this is one of the trickier things, and I'm sure we're going to have lots of updates on the camera over time. The first thing to sort of point out is that not only are cameras generally important for phones, not only are they generally important for Android devices, not just phones, they are also important or very important for small phone users. And then that's before we start talking about, are we going to be able to convince more people to buy a small phone that would otherwise buy an iPhone or an Android phone, because we need to sell enough of these to make it work. So the camera is super important, and it's really hard. Like, the camera is something that is a moat for the flagship phone companies. Apple invests huge amount of money in their phone software. Google with the Pixel software, the Pixel camera, or Gcam, can't remember what it's called nowadays. Um, Samsung with their camera app. They've done a lot in the post processing, the AI stuff, that's sort of newer, and just generally the hardware optimizations that they're able to use with the software. Turns out for all of these devices, the hardware, not apart from the iPhone, the hardware for like all the Pixel cameras and stuff is it's super commoditized. It's cheap. It's easy. There are lots of phones with similar hardware, so you can't just slap the hardware in and get good photos at the end. You have to do that custom software. The firmware I'm not so worried about, because they ship the firmware with the hardware, so we have access to that when we build a phone, and most phones have that already integrated. So that's not so much the problem, but it's that post processing stage to really make, once you've taken the photo with the good hardware, then make use of the hardware either on the ISP or on the sensor and the stabilizer. So we've got to figure out, how do we make our software for this dream small phone that we're building? How do we make it as good as possible and potentially able to challenge some of the flagship quality for certain things? So there's a big moat. It's going to be really hard to do, but it is doable. And the nice thing is, it's doable in software, not in hardware. And software is so much easier than hardware. So um, basically, the challenges that I hear that people sort of warn me of are, yeah, the hardware interfacing is tricky. Actually, there's this really nice Android API that means that most of that is abstracted away. So that's actually kind of easy, or surprisingly easy, I should say. Um, the other thing is, there are loads of open source camera apps, and none of them have like really produced that good of an image. And most of them are ugly and horrible to use. So how are we going to do anything better? There are loads of like apps that you could fork, but none of them actually get anywhere. So I have figured out, I think, how we can do this, how we can make an actually good camera app, make it open source, and make it long-term self-sustaining. So we don't need to worry about who's contributing to it. Someone gets bored, walks off, whatever, um, and it can't be bought by one of the big companies. So it's possible. I think the answer is with being a bit creative with some open source licensing, where we can have an open source license that anyone can read the code, see the code, contribute to the code, um, and we can release the app for free on the Play Store. We're not going to charge people for a camera. But what we do is we require phone manufacturers, phone vendors, to license the camera app if they deploy it on their own devices. So let's say Nothing, for example, came along and said, "Hey, your open source camera app, which currently doesn't exist, right? But your open source camera app you've been working on for a while is better than ours. We want to white label it, modify it, and deploy it on our devices. Please, can we do that?" We say yes, of course. Pay us $1 per device or $2 per device or some flat fee. and they contribute to us. We can then take that money, use it to pay for contributions, pay for experts, or just paying the existing contributors to make the camera app even better. And then once you've got nothing doing that, and you've got um, OnePlus doing that, and maybe some small phone manufacturers and some other sort of maybe Unihertz, who knows? Once you've got a few companies contributing the money they would otherwise spend building their own custom app into this shared pot, this open source app, suddenly they're all able together to build a much better camera app that allows them to compete with the flagships much more easily, much better than they could do on their own. Right? I don't know how much Nothing spends on their own camera app. I guess a couple of software engineers, maybe not even two full-time software engineers. So they probably spend one to $300,000 a year on their camera app. Imagine if they sent that to an open source project, and then OnePlus spent similar or more, and then suddenly we're able to hire twice the number of people that Nothing or OnePlus were able to spend on the camera app. So we suddenly can start matching the budget of Google of the Pixel camera app by pulling from all these different, basically becoming a consortium for a camera app. And so that will not only allow these phones to compete with flagships, but it'll also lower the gap between entry level smartphones and niche smartphones that are entering, new companies that are entering the market for the first time. Make it much easier for them to enter the market. So it'll be much easier to convince people because, don't worry about the camera. The camera's actually really good. It's based on this camera software, so you're all good. And it's all customized so it fits the skin and everything. So that's sort of the licensing and the funding plan. Obviously, we have no camera app yet, so there's no revenue. I think the revenue generating side could come after at least 6 months, 3 to 6 months. I'm going to start working on some of those partnerships once we've got an actual working app. But I think it's a pretty strategic concept for a bunch of these different vendors. So I'm pretty confident that we can make something work there. Even if to begin with it's not as good as their in-house stuff. So what we need to get to that point that we have basically closed the gap to the flagships camera software, and any new phone that enters the market, any new Android device that enters the market is going to have a great camera no matter what. And our dream small phone can have a great camera no matter what. To get there, we need to start building an open source camera app with the right licensing. So I need your help. And I'm talking to you whether you're a software engineer, a designer, a product manager, a photographer, someone that's sort of just a phone photography aficionado. If you're happy to help us test the app and test it on loads of different devices, that's really helpful as well. So if you're interested to help, we've got a really aggressive timeline. I really want to get this started as soon as possible. So our first meeting is going to be on the 30th of December. That's in a couple of weeks, in 1 week actually. We're going to have the first set of requirements finalized in early January, probably around the 10th of January, and that's going to be as part of this group meeting and discussing to really figure out what the base requirements are for V1. And then we'll have the designs ready shortly after that, a couple of days after that. And then we'll have a test build ready to go by the end of January, I hope. And then we'll have to fix instability and quality issues from there. In terms of the team, so I'm pretty confident this is doable. My background, I've run international open source projects. I've run international product engineering teams and international AI research teams. So sort of global AI research teams. So I'm pretty confident this is doable. I think between us in this community, we have the skills. I'm really confident that we can actually execute on this, and that this is not that it's hard but doable. And particularly the funding piece, the sales piece, that I think is the make or break. But I'm pretty confident that we can pull that off just because of how strategically valuable this will be once we get there. So, if you're interested, I would love for you to read the document that I've put together so far. It's got sort of much more detail about this whole project. So that's in the description. And then also join the WhatsApp group, which is just a temporary place for us to coordinate and get that first meeting scheduled so we can discuss the open questions that are in that document. So we can build an awesome open source camera app, and it's in fact we need to if we want to get a good small phone that's going to be mass marketable, so we can actually build it. So uh, we're we have the opportunity. We just need to all sort of come together and build this open source camera app, and that's whether you're an engineer, Android or not. There are ways that you can get involved and learn and help sort of contribute to the app design, product management, being a photographer, having experience in photography and understanding what makes a good photo and a bad photo. Particularly if anyone's got experience with some of the post processing from these images, so like maybe you're in Photoshop or something, um, that's going to be really helpful to help guide us as we're building the product. Um, we just need your time, need your attention, and I'm pretty sure we can build an app that's going to enable not just our dreams small phone, my dream small phone, but it'll enable a huge number of other phones to just be much more competitive, and just generally have much better cameras. It'll really like reduce the moat that the big flagships have. Cool. Thanks a lot. Would love to hear any feedback. Comment in the doc. If you think I'm wasting my time, I'd love to know. I don't want to waste my time. So any constructive criticism, really appreciate. And yeah, see you all after Christmas. Have a good one.